y'all, welcome back. Today I have more of your own scary stories to bring back to you, and I am super excited, so let's get into it. As always, if you have any stories you'd like for me to read, please send them to the email in the description and just put in the little header or somewhere at the beginning YouTube so I know where to read them. But we have quite a few stories picked out today, and I am so excited. This first story is titled Sleep Paralysis Mimic is Following Me. I'm Ashley, and I live in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Kentucky. Well, one night when I was little, around 9, I was woken up by a woman standing at the foot of my bed. She was tall, pale, and had no eyes. I immediately tried to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. I was not able to move until she left. I then went into shock and was trying desperately to tell what I just saw. A few days later, I would hear someone say, "Hey." They would also say, "Let me in. You know who I am," followed by violent shaking. This went on for 30 minutes. That sounds like, so here's the thing. When it comes to dreams, a lot of people think a lot of different things. There's a group of people that are like, it's brain activity. That's all it is. It's just like replaying things we know and it creates little scenarios. And there's another group of people that think we go somewhere when we dream. Now, if you were one of the ones that think we go somewhere when we dream, I think potentially maybe they traveled somewhere in their dream that they weren't supposed to be and something followed them back. Now, outside of that, when we sleep, we're just more vulnerable. So something could have just latched on in a vulnerable state and, tried to do whatever it was trying to do. I don't know. Let me in's crazy. I don't like that at all. But my advice, if things are still happening, I would do cleansings and banishments and things like that. Definitely put up some protections whenever, you're asleep. But if this happened when you were a kid and nothing came of it, just put it in the back of the brain. It's fine. Don't give it too much attention or it'll come back. All right, next story. You can call me Kay, and I have a bunch of paranormal stories as I've always been surrounded by entities and the paranormal. I have many stories like encounters with banshees, flesh pedestrians, ghosts and spirits, demons, and deities. This story that I want to share was years ago. I was staying at my grandma's at the time this happened. My sister and I slept in her bed while she was out in the living room watching TV. For reference, her bedroom is right next to the living room, parallel, separated by a wall. The door was left open as my sister and I were young and still scared of the dark. We were laying in bed and I looked over to see a little girl, which I didn't register until I looked over at my sister and I was like, "Wait, what?" I look back at it and scream, but as soon as I do, the whole room gets much darker. Everything was the same, but darker and more gray. I could still see the TV flashing on the wall, and as you can imagine, I was very confused. I turned to look at my sister and go, "Why didn't you comfort me when I screamed?" And she goes, "Kay, you didn't scream." I'm not really sure what that was, but it's very interesting. I love your videos and think you're gorgeous. Thank you. That sounds like it... So my question is, had you been asleep or were you just in it? Because that kind of sounds like it could have been sleep paralysis, like someone wandered in when you were asleep or something wandered in when you were asleep. But if you were wide awake, I don't know. I have no explanation for that unless something was blocking anyone from hearing you scream, which definitely could be the case. I don't like that. Because you said you've had a lot of experience with paranormal things, so I'm thinking you're just open to it. But, and that would explain why something just wandered in there. But I don't like the fact that no one heard you scream if it wasn't sleep paralysis. So I don't know. Ugh. My problem is the things that I've seen cannot be found on the internet. And people with longer paranormal experiences haven't heard of them as well. So here's some of my stories. It happened during my university years at lodging in another city. I shared the flat with 4 other people and their dog. One of the things that happened often, which still bugs me today, was the orange lines in the sky. They appeared suddenly and struck my eyes just like lightning bolts, and they were horizontal and appeared only when the sky was clear and blue. No clouds or any other signs of the storm. I used to wait for the rumbling noise right after their appearance, but it never came. I checked the internet and haven't found anything like that. I attached a rough sketch of what it could look like. Oddly enough, it happened only at that one lodging, and I haven't seen it since I moved. I still have no idea what it was, but I remember someone on the paranormal site saying that it may have been the lines of Mars, which I googled and found nothing. Another story from the lodgings is that the dog would sometimes sit outside the room in the corridor and stare into the open bathroom, which was at the end of the hall. The dog didn't bark or shiver or anything like that. She just stood there and stared into apparently nothing. There was this weird, not entirely comfortable feeling in that little bathroom, but nothing that would make me feel alarmed or scared. The only weird thing that happened there was when something scratched me. I was changing into my nightgown, no clasp or anything like that, only a few buttons in the front, when I felt a scratch on my back. I had my arms above my head, so it couldn't have been my nails, plus I would feel that. There was nothing sharp around me either, a sink in the front and a washing machine behind me. I checked for any marks, but there was nothing. So the orange lines in the sky, I have never heard or seen anything about that or like that ever. Like, it sounds to me like, you know, whenever the sun sets, sometimes there's hues of orange, right? But it's not that if it's like in the middle of the day. So I don't know, because you think of like jet trails and things, they're white, obviously, sometimes gray, but not orange. I have no idea. I'm gonna look up the lines of March. I looked up Mars lines and the only things I'm finding are like of palm readings. So I googled orange lines because I'm curious, and it says the exhaust from an airplane could form a trail of water vapor condensation in the sky called a contrail? I don't know. Which will appear pink or orange if lit by the right light from the setting sun. This kind of looks like what they drew. Maybe it was that. That's like a pretty non-scary explanation. So on Reddit, someone said, I was recently stargazing and saw an orange line in the sky for maybe less than a second. I tried Googling it, but every other Google either described a flash, not a thin line, or some light. And people on here are saying that it could have been a meteor that like whisked by. And like, I would think that if it was just like a quick thing, but if the line stayed, it was probably the exhaust from the airplane water vapor thing. That makes sense. As far as the bathroom goes, it does sound like something definitely took that room as its home. And if the dog didn't bark, I don't think it was necessarily anything bad, which tells me that whatever scratched you was probably something else that was traveling through and wasn't the same thing that the dog sees. So maybe whatever's in the bathroom attracted something else to come in there, and that's what scratched you. I don't think it was the same thing. All right, let's get into another story. All of the men on my dad's side of the family have had many paranormal experiences, but the women not so much. I am pagan and have just started doing divination and working with pendulums. I live with my mom's sister and stepdad who haven't had the same experiences in our house as I have. In fact, they haven't had any. I, on the other hand, have had many. Whenever I am in view or near the hallway at night, I feel both scared and watched. When my sister was little, she would also have this experience, but she doesn't anymore. I don't feel like this anywhere except for famously haunted areas and my home. Also, when I needed to leave my bed in the middle of the night to get a snack or use the bathroom, as soon as I reach the door, I get an overpowering feeling to get away from that door and hide. It doesn't feel like a gut feeling, but rather a higher power telling me to leave that door alone. The one time I did leave my room after this, I was going back to my room and I saw part of what looked like a silver outline of a shorter person. As soon as I saw that, I ran as fast as I could back to my room. The last thing I've seen was me and my family went sledding, and when we got back to our table that is normally touching a wall, it was a foot away from it. This is the only thing that me and my family have noticed. I really don't know what this thing is, if it's malevolent or if I should be worried. So then they sent an update. They originally sent the story on June 16th, and the update came on June 25th. Update, lights have started acting up in and around the house, and I'm not sure if it's related. So it definitely is. Spirits like to mess with electronics a lot, so it's definitely related. I recommend a cleansing. You said you started doing divination and things like that. Whenever, I'm speaking from experience here, whenever you first get started into your craft, things kind of ramp up for you. You're kind of like opening yourself up to experience more things, and you do. So I would do a cleansing, maybe make a protection jar or two, make a protection candle and burn it, just whatever you want to do. But I would set up some sort of protection, do some banishments, cleanse your house, and then line your windows and doorways with black salt or regular salt, whatever you want to use. But yeah, I would do that. This next story is titled A Collection of Stories from My Childhood, and these are from Sweden, so that's really cool. There have been a few instances in my life where I've not been able to explain what's happened to me. I've always been a believer, but a little skeptic in my head always tries to brush it off as hallucinations, so I decided to write to you and see what you think. Little side note just before I begin, I just thought through what I was going to tell you and the thought that maybe it's connected to my dad. The first story was when I was 2 or 3 years old. I live in an apartment complex from the 50s. In our apartment, the kitchen goes between 2 bedrooms. The bigger one was my parents', which is where I slept in at the time. They had a huge bed right in front of the door so that I could see the fridge at night if the door was open. One night when I was about to go to sleep, a huge shadow, kind of like the shape of the blob monster from Spirited Away, walked in front of the door so that I could see only the kitchen light in the top corners. I was screaming, telling my mom to get it away, but she claimed it was my dad. She closed the door and we went to sleep. Like, maybe you were partially asleep and just, like, thought that it wasn't the shape of your dad, but the shape of the blob monster doesn't really look like a person, so I don't know. Second time, I was 5 and going to sleep in the room across, which is now my room. My mom was saying goodnight when suddenly a face just floated through my ceiling. It wasn't a human face, more like a drawing. It had spiky hair and sharp teeth. I screamed that time too and had to sleep in my parents' room. After that, nothing really happened for a while until I was around 11. My dad passed previously that year and I was not okay mentally as a traumatized child. Why can I not say traumatized? That is like my 5th time trying. As a traumatized child would. So that might be why I had an experience, since I would have been vulnerable. But still, I went to summer camp. During this camp, we went on a boat trip camping. It was raining really bad, pouring. Me and my friends decided that meant it was a perfect time to take a walk in the forest. It was me, my boyfriend at the time, and some other guy. We found this little rocky beach thing, and I decided to go out to the farthest rock alone and stand on it to be dramatic or whatever. I was 11 and it seemed cool. It was not cool because when I stood there, I had my name whispered in my right ear. Naturally, I went running back to where the group teachers were and sobbed in one of their arms for a while. I was proper scared. After that, I haven't had anything happen to me. There is one little wholesome story that I could tell, though. I mentioned before that my dad passed. Well, I'm pretty sure he reincarnated and lives with us. When I was 8 to 10, we used to have a fly that would just fly around in our home. No one brought it in, it was just there. My sister, who was 3 or 5 at the time, strictly forbid us to take care of this fly, which she named Goldie. Me and my mom didn't really care much, but she and her dad were always talking about Goldie. When my dad passed, Goldie disappeared until one day that fly was sitting on the wall by my desk. The fly sat there for 3 years without moving until I eventually took it down to move my desk. Not one time did that fly leave my wall. It wasn't laying on anything or something like that. It just hung from the wall like it was a part of it. Everyone in our family just collectively agreed that it was Dad. Ugh. Short little story before I end this. Yesterday I was watching your video about the box that the possession is based on. While I was watching it, I started feeling weird, but it could have been my mind playing tricks on me because I'm scared. But then I felt something poke my right eye. I know where this is going. Like a needle or something, and it sort of sat there for seconds before it just went away. And just then in the video, you go, "Oh, I forgot to mention, while me and my husband were researching, we both got pains in our right eyes." You can imagine how that made me feel. Yep. No, because that's terrifying, and that is not the only person that has told me that while watching that video, right before I even said anything, their right eye just started aching. So what is going on with that? I need to know. Thank you for ending it on that note and not the story of the fly, because I was actively crying. I'm glad nothing else paranormal has really happened. Maybe it just kind of worked itself out of your system other than that incident with the possession video. But yeah, I do agree. I think that fly was your dad. I was definitely your dad. He was just watching you, and it's really sad. Okay. Dude, I can read the scariest stuff. You send me something wholesome, and I am paralyzed with sadness for hours. You want to come say hi since you came down here?
Brought my jorts.
You're not going to say hi?
Didn't know what's up.
Do you have words of wisdom, a ghost story, anything you want to share?
Oh, okay. There was this one time.
Oh.
Whenever I was just a boy, and I was asleep, and I was dreaming, and I heard 2 voices arguing in my head. One told the other one to leave, and when I woke up, I heard it still saying, "I'm not ready to leave."
Did you make that up on the spot, or you?
No, that actually.
Why didn't you ever tell me that?
I just now remembered it.
That was some repressed stuff. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next time.